Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm hearing an echo. Does anyone have their phone on?
Good evening, everyone.
How's
Yes,
that?
that's better. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to South TV. This is Monica Kunsekwe Gutam, your host. Today, we are talking about sexual energy and self-care. That's our topic for today. I have got Maxine Sipiwe, and John is going to join us soon. But first of all, I'm going to allow Maxine to introduce herself and tell us what she does.
Well, Monica, thank you so much, Sipiwe and John, for joining me tonight. My name is Maxine, and I support women who feel stuck. I help them to become unstuck from toxic relationships and limiting behaviors. And how I do this is through self-care. So, Monica and I thought we would take a different spin tonight and talk about the correlation between self-care and sexual energy. And just to get the ball rolling tonight, I guess I'll just start off by saying that sexual energy is one of the most powerful energy there is, just because of the sheer pleasure that it brings, and one of the energy that most people connect with. But with great power comes great responsibility, because you have to be careful about the energy that you take on sexually.
Before we go into that, Maxine, I want everybody to introduce themselves and then we get into the discussion.
Sorry, Monica, I'm very passionate about this topic.
That's okay, because everybody will be wondering, okay, and who are the other people? They want to know. Okay, Sipiwe.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Monica, for inviting me once again. And my name is Piwe Mapfumo, Kachiza Mapfumo, and I'm a constant on South TV, and I wear different hats at different times. I'm an activist, I am a feminist, I am very passionate about HIV advocacy. I work in HIV, and also I'm a journalist.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we go on to John.
Hi, my name is John. I'm a single father in my 50s. I'm in the construction and building trades and now embarking on new adventures in new areas, new markets, possibly in markets where these things are not affordable or available for underdeveloped countries or for underprivileged children. So that's kind of where I'm headed these days. But great to speak to you, ladies, on Happy International Women's Day, and to get your guys' point of view on this, because I have my point of view as a guy. So I'd love to hear from the ladies and their point of view.
Thank you so much. So before we proceed or we get to hear about your views, I think it's important to ascertain why it is important that we understand why everybody needs to know and understand about sexual energy. So now I come to you, Maxine.
Wow, I just wanted to acknowledge John. And John and I went to high school together, so we've been friends for, yikes, almost 40 years. So it's great to connect.
40 years, that's right.
Yeah, it's great to connect with old friends as well. Sexual energy is a very intense and powerful energy. And it's just like anything else in your life. You have to understand what, if you're not responsible with it, what the outcomes are. When you're sexually active with your energy, it's a transfer. And I'm just going to break it down to the end, and then we can hear everyone's perspective. So what that means is your last partner that you were intimate with, you take on the energy of everyone else that he has been with. And whether that energy is positive or negative, you have to start to pay attention that when you're in a relationship, these are some of the things that you take on with the choice of person that you allow in your life. And sexual energy and the trauma of sexual energy is one of those things. So Sipwe, I'd love to hear your thoughts on my sharings.
Thanks, Maxine. And I think I would like to concur or agree with what you say, that sexual energy, let me put it this way. Usually when people are involved in any sexual relationship, it's more than what you are seeing there, or more than just seeing a guy, a male and a female, and wanting to be with him. It goes beyond that to maybe to fulfill or to reach a point where there is a sexual confluence, where you get to a point where you are comfortable with each other. It's more than just seeing a person and just getting involved in a sexual act. I quite agree with that. And it kind of popped my mind when you said you have to be careful with the people you get involved with sexually, because their last encounter with whoever is brought into your relationship. I think I would like to think it's a new way of thinking, and to me, it kind of jostles my mind. How does that work? Because I believe in any relationship, any sexual relationship, there is need to concentrate on what you have for it to be a fruitful, a meaningful relationship. But I would like to hear more on the almost spiritual aspect of sexual encounters.
Okay, so we move on to John. What do you say to what the two ladies have said?
When it comes to the topic of sexuality, I break it up into three different areas. Now, if we take human beings and mankind and bring it all the way back to basic archaic sexuality, where it's just for procreation in order for survival, there's that aspect of sexuality, and that's just sex. And I don't think it was until we were connected with the understanding that there was a universe beyond ourselves, where we were connected with the spirit, that we started to become connected with the sexual spirit. And that's when it took a different turn. And that's when it became special bond between a husband and wife, or between a man and a wife, or a man and a woman. And that's where it went from an act, a physical act, to more of a spiritual act. Now that we're kind of lost where we are in our understanding, in that where we're confused between the physical act and the spiritual act. Perhaps we can't let go of the physical part of it, or perhaps we have walls or things in the way that keep us from going further and forwards in that. And that's my little take on that part of it. And I myself am experiencing it myself. So I'm like everybody else. I'm a human being going through the whole thing and trying to be aware of it, and mostly in my own feelings and understandings of that.
Thank you.
But
Christine,
yes, once you go into the realm of sexuality in a spiritual sense, then it becomes completely something else, because then it means something between the partners, and it's a bond that's strong enough to last from beginning to end.
Okay, so you mentioned three, and from what you said, I picked up the physical and the spiritual. Which one is the third one?
Right.
Recreational, I think.
Right. There's the archaicness where it was just done like for procreation. Then it was for just the act of sex, and then it was for the spiritual part. Once the spiritual part got into it, then it passed on to a new a plateau or a new area of understanding when it came to sexual. Oh, my son wants to see. Do you guys want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
And he's gone. But anyways.
So
he's listening in it. He's 11, but this is good stuff for him, so that's okay.
He's fortunate. He will learn.
You know something about electronics.
I was going to point out.
Yeah, so that's my understanding up till now. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions and your guys' ideas of it from your experiences and personal experiences, because that will also help me to understand as well and further my understanding and further my spiritual journey as well.
Thank you.
I was going to add to what I said earlier on, coming from what John has said, those 3 pieces that he has mentioned. And I think we can't run away from the recreational bit of it, which I think for a lot of people, sex has been brought down to just a recreational thing. And as you can see, the online dating, the online whatever, people phone each other just specifically for sex only, for just the sexual performance only. And when it's done, and one moves on, which I'm not here to judge right, wrong, or in between, but we need to look at sex through that lens as well, that it has become a commodity just for consumption and moving on.
Right. It's the current situations. Moving on to Christina, what's your take on the discussion and what we're talking about? Sexual energy and self-care.
Well, first of all, good night, everybody.
Hi.
Hope you are all well. Okay, so sexual energy. For me, sexual energy is what I've, in my own experiences, what I see it as is not just the physical act of intercourse, but also creative energy. So that energy that you'd use to paint, that energy that you used to write, I say that is sexual energy as well, because it's a form of creation, which intercourse is also. So for me, sexual energy is not just the physical act, but that act of uniting and just creating and exchanging.
Yeah. If I could add to that is sexual energy in its purest and richest form. I think maybe, Christina, what we had started to talk about was the self-care of the sexual energy. And both what you and John had mentioned, when it's in sync and in harmony, it is the most beautiful energy there is, because you're free flowing. Your sexual energy is your life force. And that's when all your jewels, they just literally come out. But also causing awareness to this. And for this, this language and this topic is going to be very foreign to people hearing this. So it's just more about causing awareness and how you can tell if you are in a good sexual relationship, whether it's with yourself or your partner. Does your partner make you feel love when you're intimate? Are you doing things that you feel that are within your comfort and your boundaries? So your sexual energy and interaction tells you a lot about not only yourself, but about your partner as well. And, this is just a discussion for people to start looking at these things and, just understanding that everything is connected and we all have the answers there. It's just for us to open up and start looking into them.
Well said, Maxine. I agree 100%.
Interesting. Coming back to Sipiwe.
Yes, I was just going to talk a little bit about from a cultural through a cultural lens, particular where I come from, and what sexual energy, how best we could look at a topic such as this, which in my culture is not something that we openly discuss, particularly with men and women. Anything that pertains to sex is really for women. We discuss this with our aunties, our mothers, our big sisters, and they are things that we are equipped to in our lives as you're growing up women. And maybe I'm not talking about the younger people now. They might not have that. Their mothers, their aunties are very today people, so they don't look at things like that. But culturally, when we were growing up, or when my mother was growing up, this was an area where they would talk about femininity. What does it mean to be a female? And how to take care of yourself, not necessarily to take care of yourself for your husband or your partner, but yourself as a woman. Those are the jewels that you are given to respect yourself as a female and to feel comfortable with the sex that you are born in. And unfortunately, that has lost. We've lost that in somehow. We are losing it, and we don't talk about it. You are not advice on what to do to feel complete as a woman, and for yourself and your other female sisters and people in your orbit. That's how it was. And I think it was very powerful because there was that something that you knew only you as women, you can talk about as women, as females in the family, and what you need to know about yourself. And then comes that other piece when you are preparing to move on from just being a young adult female to maybe thinking in terms of getting married, what is expected of you and what's good for you as a woman. Your husband doesn't need to know it, but what you need to do to take care of yourself as a woman. And I think those were very important lessons which somehow we've lost in the process. Because as I said earlier on, when people talk of sex now, to the generation that I've watched, particularly back home, it has become very recreational. That it has lost that other essence of what is it as a female, sexuality, yourself, taking care of your emotional, and what is it that you are bringing to yourself as a female, different from a male child. We kind of lost it. We've lost it.
Yeah.
That's true. Chrissy, would you like to jump in?
Oh, I just loved everything you just said. Like, that's so important. We really don't get that education, especially because I think you said something and it reminded me that there's so much shame around sex and sexual energy in our culture. When you think about it, if not a lot of persons' parents discuss with them sex openly, they would tell you, the birds and the bees story and stuff like that. So, that energy it has some kind of shame that is attached to it, especially for women.
Mm. You know what? That's well said, Chrissy. And here's the thing: the more shame we attach to sex, it's like it pulls in people more and more. Because the power of it, the taboo of it, it's causing the negative, what really sex should be about, the energy and the stigma that we now attach it to is so different than this beautiful act that's created from love or with love. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, John, that comes to mind?
It's different, but what I find as similar in many cultures, especially in South American, Caribbean, and Asian cultures, is that the woman is taught by the mother that her job is to please her husband. And the man really isn't taught anything except that he is in ownership over this woman and this family. Now, this is from my understanding, from my culture, but I was raised in Canada, so it's a little bit different. I have this ideology based on generational misconceptions and cultural misconceptions, and I'm being raised with these misconceptions in my head, but I'm seeing something different. Now, what I noticed is that it doesn't matter what culture you come from. It seems to me that up until perhaps even into this generation, but definitely into the last, that was normal. That's what was taught. But never was it discussed what is a sexual relationship between a husband and a wife. That never existed until we were in school and we took health education. And that was kind of really messed up because that explained nothing whatsoever. Not the love aspect of it, not the give and take, not the respect, not the nurture, not the trust, not the important parts of a relationship. Also, there was never any teachings about, compromise, or compromise nowadays means, oh, somebody gave in. To me, compromise doesn't mean somebody gave in. To me, compromise means we're going to do it this way for now, but I'll bring it up again later on if I'm still not happy with it. We don't do relationships that way. How could we ever get to the point once we're having our children, finishing our degrees, having our children's, getting on with their lives, buying the homes, the cars, trying to impress the hell out of everyone, to ever have time to talk to my wife about these sort of things? So how would I ever get to the point where I'm going to take a physical act, which I'm going to use in a spiritual way in connecting with my spouse? How does that happen? And how do we make that happen?
Is this a question, or it's something that you are thinking maybe there are ways to do it?
I believe that there are ways to do it, and I'm pretty sure that there are effective ways to do it. And I believe that we have people available who can sit together, come together, and figure out effective approaches on how to put couples back together again, how to put families back together again, how to heal some of the damages that have been done. It's going to take a lot of people. I think it's going to take a lot of different groups, and I think it's going to take a lot of these different groups who are like-minded to come together in all of their different ideas and challenges and areas of our society that they want to maybe take a look at and get involved in.
Well,
Those are very good points that you raised, John. Maxine, would you like to respond?
yeah, I would just love to add on to, I'd love to respond to John's question about how is this ever going to get done? It's just like how anything else gets done, one thing at a time. From a little show like this, you never know who it's going to reach. Speak your truth. We're all storytellers. Stories heal you. And all that other person needs to hear in your story is one word to connect. Ripple effects. John, I mean, you must know about quantum physics. Ripple effects. Just do you. Just heal you. Just be you. Just be your message. That's all it takes. And when you become your message, you see that message in everyone else because you mirror what you are. So when you become that light, you not only amplify other people's light, you reflect the light and you see it in others, right? But just one person at a time. Start with you.
It does start with the individual. It started all with me. It wouldn't have got to this point if it wasn't something that I was in my mind, and The connections, I believe, are made more on a universal level, spiritual level, whatever anyone's beliefs are. We all know that things don't happen just by chance, so things fall into place, and it's available to us. It's what are we going to do with it?
Absolutely.
Right. Supiwe.
Like any movement, I would like to think like any movement starts with a certain group of people with same mind, same thinking, and then to really shift the thinking to a certain level, it would need a group of people, but it starts with just a few people who might have the same kind of thinking and wanting to. People want to become vegetarians. They hang out with more vegetarians, and more and more people become vegetarians, right? And the same thing with this kind of thinking. And we are at crossroads as Black people. I think we are at crossroads because a lot has been. We continue to look at things from through a Eurocentric lens, and we forget who we are, where we came from, where we started, where things worked without even being written down on paper. We had no TV, no other networks of talking about it, but it was an acceptable thing. As I said, our cultures is certain ways of looking at things, and it worked. But somehow we lost it somewhere along the line. We lost it, and I think we can bring it back. Like John it's a question and a statement. Where do I start? Where do we start? It's more a statement. We gotta start somewhere, but we need to talk about it, and we need to connect and get to a certain point where we all agree that if there's going to be a paradigm shift here, it has to start at this point with a group of people and moving towards a certain movement. That's what I think. And it worked pretty well. When we throw in the self-help, self-care, it's very important because you can lose it in your head. You can lose it in your head because when sex becomes just a performance, then it leaves one in a big hole in your soul. It bores a hole in your soul because it's just a performance and it has nothing to do with your emotion. And we need to get there.
Go ahead, Supiwe.
I was just saying, if we are not careful, it will leave us very lost and very without that self-care we're talking about here. So we need to look at sex and go back to where we started. What was it meant for? What did it mean? What was the discussion around that? And the respect of each other when it comes to our sexuality and who we are as men and women, the differences, and that what brings us together when a performance is sexual performance is conducted.
Listening to this discussion and what John has said.
John has disappeared.
Monica, you're muted.
So listening to the points that are raised by Supiwe, John, Maxine, and Christine, it's actually a very beautiful thing. But it seems like this is something that has lost its value. And so if younger people are just coming in and having no knowledge of all these values that you pick from it, and it's just an act, just for the sake of it, I think it is important that something gets done about it. Christine, have you got something to add?
My mic thing, okay. Yeah, I think we just have to, return to some ancient practices, just like some things that Supiwe spoke about, we have to gather together, each one teach one, I teach my daughter, she teaches somebody else, you teach your niece, she teaches somebody else, and We just have to implement some of those traditions today in order to find our way again. So again, it starts from within.
Monica, you're muted.
Okay. So do we now we want to go to John before we now go into the negative and positive energy of it and see how it impacts our relationships going forward and affects ourselves.
On a bigger scale, family is the basis for civilization. A husband and wife. Not I don't know if everyone's religious, but I'm going to quote a little bit from the Bible. But um, Jesus talks about one and one going to two, two going to three, and he talks about it in numbers. And I believe what he's talking about is marriage, family. He's speaking about one person and marrying in a spouse, and that's the beginning of community. Now, that relationship is so important at the beginning because that relationship is what's going to bring humanity to where we are now and forward. If we do it in a healthy way, our society, from what I see, has done more damage to destroy family, which has destroyed community, and done a very efficient job at it in a very rapid amount of time, within a mere 2 generations. My children don't want to get married. They're afraid. They're afraid of relationships. They're afraid to get married. And my fear is that fear of getting married is going to isolate the generations, and the family unit is going to die. If the family unit dies, then the community dies. If the community dies, what future is there for humanity? The relationship between a husband and wife, which started as a sexual act, is more than that. That sexual act is a spiritual connection. And that's between a husband and a wife, a man and a woman. I don't know how we got to this point in this day and age, but I haven't been able to keep a relationship. I'm divorced. I raise children on my own. I keep a smile on my face. I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, and I'm a positive influence person. I focus on the positive. But a part of my life is missing. I can pretend to be happy, but I'm not complete. The feeling of completeness, I can imagine it could be in a solid foundation relationship, in a spiritual, sexual relationship with my wife, showing an example to my children of what true relationship and true marriage is. And one step at a time, slowly, generation by generation, family by family, maybe we can turn this catastrophe around one day. That's my hope.
That is
I
so
don't know any other.
powerful. That is so powerful, John. I don't know, Spiwa, have you got something to add?
You know what's a bit disturbing is because, like John said, things have changed so rapidly, and when we talk about sex, there are other dimensions which have come into play here, because when we going back to where we started, it was mainly a man and a woman, and in a formation of a family. That's what we know from way back, right? But I'm not judging. I am quite open to a lot of ideas. We know that where we are right now, there are different settings of family now. Yeah, it could be two men and a child even, or two women alone in a relationship like that. So these other pieces, they are fairly new. However, it comes to the same thing when it comes to a close relationship with somebody. It's basically the same. But for me, I'm not well equipped to talk on that because I'm a cisgender. I am heteronomy. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Where I'm in the body of a female and I've lived as a female and attracted to males, right? Though I can speak on behalf of people who are in a relationship which is not the same. I can only speak about the little that I know that they are in such a relationship, but I also assume they have the same feelings for each other. But again, I go back to my initial argument that things have taken a different twist and turn now. They are different kind of arrangements, male and female, female and female, male and male. And so it's difficult. It's difficult for me to come up with a solid point that a relationship should be like this. But I would like to think it doesn't matter any which way. There has to be a certain sense of respect for each other. And I can speak for heterosexual relationships because that's what I know.
Yeah.
I believe during these times right now, the focus should be on the relationship, the love of the relationship, and what that matters. What is important that bonds two people together. I don't want to get into a political debate over these sort of things, or even my personal views on these sort of things. But what I will speak about what I do know, and what I do know about is relationships, and those relationships happen between men and women, women and women, men and men. So I'm gonna just stick to relationships and what it takes to make a relationship bond so tight that it goes on into a spiritual relationship, and that spiritual relationship also is transferable into the sexual relationship, because there's a lot of connecting there. I mean, we use parts of our bodies that are highly sensitive. They invoke sensations throughout our body. The hairs on our body stand up. Our fireworks are going off, and we're feeling at our most adrenaline best, and serotonin is surging through our bodies. And at those times, we're even thinking things that we normally might not have thought of. Beautiful things, even sometimes, most of the time. And from those things, who knows what can come from those things. So focusing on the relationship part for me is the important part. I have children who are younger and who are very opinionated on what is okay and what is not okay. And I don't want to step on their toes right now while I'm building bonds on growing together with them. So they have their opinions, and I respect their opinions. And I've seen examples of things that I may not have agreed of 20 years ago, but now I'm a little bit more accepting of, because I see beautiful people. So that those personal views, ethical views, are always changing, always growing. But one thing I do know is that love is love, and relationships are relationships, families are families, and a community can raise a family, can raise a child, can raise each other, can help each other, love each other. That always stands no matter what. So that's always going to be there, that part. So they can confuse us with the other stuff, but that stuff still is there.
That's true. Maxine, what's your
I'd just like to both acknowledge Sipwe and John for highlighting like different styles of relationship. And I just wanted to say that, it doesn't discriminate what type of relationship you're in. If there's sexual trauma, if you're using sex to eradicate or numb your pain or to hold a relationship together, It doesn't matter the type of relationship, whether it's heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, it's not sustainable. You cannot get to that relationship. You cannot get to that spiritual path of that relationship if the healing between the union in that sexual energy is not on the same page. If they're not healed, the sex is going to be off balance, right? And that's where all the dysfunctions happen, right?
Yes, and the dysfunctions will be quite damaging too. And like you were saying earlier on, the trauma can be carried on to the next relationship. Christina.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think as we speak about stuff being passed off, I think that's why it's so important for us to have a habitual like cleansing of yourself. You know. Ooh.
Oh, just continue. She'll be back.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it's important for us to incorporate just cleansing ourselves, just everybody. I mean, regardless of your styles, whatever you're doing, how many partners you have, whatever, just cleansing yourself and just taking times, breaks in between, your relationships, just be able to reset and, move forward with just, an open ear, like a clean slate then.
Yeah, Christina, one thing you said is I'd love people to consider what I'm going to say next. How you end your last relationship is how you will start your next. It is so important to take that break to heal yourself so that baggage does not travel with you.
So when you finish the previous relationship, there's baggage there. I want to know the cleansing process, because it seems to me like the energy is intangible. So how do I get this energy out of my system?
That word again, self-care, the practice, the betterment of your wellness and creating more happy moments. When you exit a relationship, heal from that relationship, become intimate with yourself. Perhaps the things that you were lacking or in desire of the most in the previous relationship, understand why you needed them and come up with a way to fulfill that need within you. Take it back to you and your self-care. And once you feel that you're whole and you're healthy and you have this love for yourself and added love to give, then that's a great indicator that, hey, you know what? I'm ready to receive this person in my life to complement what I'm already doing. Not to compensate, but to complement.
Okay, Sipiwe.
I'd like to go back. Christine said you need to reset when you move from one experience to another, because a lot of times, I'm sure we all have heard that if you don't create that special time for yourself, the you time of resetting, that was her word, you need to reset. And that just can't happen spinning from one relationship into other, hoping you fill the gaps that you missed out in the previous relationship. It could have been, it could have ended in by death or just divorce or just break up or whatever. There is need to create that time of resetting. Who are you? Who do you want to be with? And whatever you probably were part of the experience, the previous experience, and looking at it and say, where wasn't I fulfilled in that relationship? Was I part of what went wrong? Or was I quiet the whole time and just putting up with the relationship, but in which way it ended? What was my contribution to this? Was that a beautiful experience I had? It could have been. It could have been a beautiful relationship. Somebody dies or something like that. But you can't just jump from that and hoping that you reconnect and carry on from what you left, because you need that brief moment or that long moment. It all depends with when you know it's right, your body will tell you it's now right. The person you've met or the relationship that you're in, shall I move forward? And every relationship is different. You have to have certain tenets of things that you believe are what you expect from a relationship. But definitely that break is very important, because you can't be jumping from one relationship into other and hoping to get the same results. It never works that way.
Absolutely. That is why they say if you're injured and you just go into another relationship, you go and bleed on that person, and that will cause even more damage. I'll go to Christina and then John.
Yes, so you said you asked a question earlier, Monica, about some of the ways in which people cleanse. Well, I know some of the physical ways. There are people that take special baths with special herbs. I know one of the ways people just abstain for a while. You know, they cleanse themselves with stuff like sage and Palo Santo or yoni eggs and stuff like that. So that's some of the physical stuff that I'm aware of that people would use to cleanse themselves sexually. And you know, Maxine mentioned something important about complementing each other. And then I just remember when John said that he's not complete. So I wanted to say, John, you are indeed complete. You are complete. There's just, and probably it's just a choice of word, there's just a different energy. There's just something different you experience with having a partner that you won't alone. Because they'll bring out triggers in you that you won't have alone. You know, to test all of that healing that you claim that you did then in that time period of abstaining from relationships. So you are complete, John.
Hold on.
I've also learned from my own personal experiences. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. I learned from my own personal experiences as well. When we get into relationships, especially at a young age, you know, we're not taught how to be in a relationship. Our mothers and fathers do not teach us how to conflict resolve anything. So we're thrown into these relationships, and most of them start when we're teenagers, anyways, well before marriage. And in that relationship, we learn to coexist, and we love each other, and we say nice things, and then we get our first hurdle. And the first hurdle usually is, well, I want this, and this person wants this, and that's where now manipulation tactics come in. What am I going to use to get what I want, and what is my partner going to use to get what they want? In that interaction, one of them is going to give in and give in to the other one. Now, through this relationship, there's going to be give and take and manipulation and not straightforward communication to get what they want. And in this relationship, one of them is going to get more than the other one. And the one who didn't quite get what they wanted to is going to go through life and come out of this relationship being manipulated. And this is going to build up certain factors in how they resolve conflict going forwards. Now, when we jump from relationship to relationship and we haven't resolved the baggage that somebody put onto us because we just wanted to get along in our relationship, keep it smooth, because who knows, one day it could get great. And in our attempts to do this, we've compromised ourselves, our ethics, our beliefs, come out of the relationship lonely, feeling bad, broken because we're out of a relationship. We're not used to it anymore. Best thing to do is spend time and heal ourselves. What we end up doing is getting back into a relationship too quickly without fixing the trauma or the ill effects that were caused by that previous relationship and carried into the next one with new manipulation tactics coming in, along with the unresolved ones that you used, along with the ones who you are, and who knows how many the other partner brought into it. So this is exponentially getting more and more confusing as we're going along. So it's understandable how, as we get older, we think relationships should be easier. We know more. But in fact, relationships become more complex and harder.
Only if
So
you don't heal,
definitely
John.
taking, pardon?
Only if you don't heal.
Only if you don't heal. So that time in between is so imperative for you to heal, because you're not going to be effective, first of all, to yourself, and definitely not going to be effective enough to take your new partner who you've chosen and are willing to work with because you think this person is worth it. So here we're about to embark on another mission, and we had better be prepared to help this person, or to help this person help you to have a proper relationship in communication and in love and in openness and patience to carry this relationship forward.
You know, I was going to say there's a problem here when you have younger people growing, well, younger people, young adults in relationships, and talking about from one relationship to the other. It gets better, John, when you are older and you're quite clear in your mind who you are. It really does get better because there is no need for any manipulation, because you know who you are, you know what you're looking for. And for younger people, there's a problem somewhere there, and I can see it. I have a lot of young friends, maybe in their 20s, 30s, and maybe 40s, who are struggling with this relationship issue because they just feel like, oh, these men are all the same. This whole thing, you know, you go into a relationship and you think it's going to be fantastic, but this guy's he just left. Because that period, each one of you is not clear what they want from a relationship, okay? And as a result, you feel let down because maybe somebody just wants some sex. Maybe just somewhere to go hang out over the weekends, and the truth is they have sex and that's what they want, and they're gone. Next time they go to another person and, you know, I like her, she's fine, she good, and you know what, I wonder what she's like in bed. And then they move on to that. But when you are older and you're quite clear in your mind that, you know, you want companionship and to create a relationship that will be satisfactory to you, the sex might not be so great and might not even really exist, but you have a relationship, a sexual relationship, which has got nothing to do with the sexual performance, if you get what I'm saying. So it will get better. The older you get, the more you know yourself, the more you're comfortable with yourself, you have a tendency to attract people who are of similar thoughts and who are expecting the same thing.
Sipwe, if I could just add one thing. It's a lot more enjoyable if the performance is good.
Well, of course, I mean, that's quite obvious. It's quite obvious. But there's nothing as beautiful as a companionship with somebody you totally enjoy.
Absolutely. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Monica, can I say how well rested you look?
Who, me?
John?
Sir John,
I'm looking well rested, am I?
Well, Monica's looking very rested.
For me, it's been 3 years since the relationship, so I'm taking my sweet time at this. So
take it easy.
So I'm very well rested these days.
Me too.
That's
I'm well rested. Just like what Sipiwe is saying. I think there was someone who used to text me around 1 a.m., you know, like online. Somebody just texts you, and I said to him, "You're texting me around this time. What do you want?" You know, and you see, like, people are just looking for casual sex.
Mm-hmm.
You always text me around. He goes, "Oh, because I've got needs." I said, "Oh, go away. Don't even know you." And I don't need that, you know. But there are other people who are just thinking, you know what, it's available, let me just take and leave it because there's no attachment. But it affects you because you remain with their energy. And it's even worse if you don't even know their name. So So I'll go on to Christina.
Oh my God, Monica, you're killing me right now. John mentioned something very important that I really wish they taught in school from as early as like primary school about problem solving. Like a lot of us never had the privilege of seeing that displayed, and that's so important. I wish that skill was really taught to us because it would make our relationships, not just our intimate relationship, but friendships with siblings a lot more easier. And and Speedway mentioned something. I'm trying to remember. I kind of like, but also I just wanted to say we have to honor where we are too. I mean, I know casual sexual relationships are looked down, and I understand, but I feel like there's a period in every person's life where you kind of have to be open to a one-off scenario like that. You know what I mean? It's not every relationship is gonna be super serious and like I'm gonna marry this person. So you kind of have just to be open sometime and honor where you are, especially. Yeah, you kind of just have to honor where you are.
But here's the thing to that, Christina. A one-off is not a lifestyle.
Right, absolutely.
People that have that continuous pattern of behavior.
Absolutely right. But I'm saying, especially as women and so forth, we are kind of like, you kind of judge yourself if you find yourself in a situation like that, or if you've decided to partake in something like that, you kind of, there's kind of like this shame attached to it. But, we just have to respect ourselves and respect each other. And, any situations we get ourselves involved in should be of love and just mutual respect.
Amen.
That is true. There's so much learning to do. So the learning that I'm talking about is when we are having to learn to be open, to be more understanding as well, because things are changing all the time. New perspectives, new views, and new things are coming up. And so we are finding ourselves having to learn fast too. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing is to be accepting. So now I'm giving everybody 1 minute to do the conclusion. But before we do that, so Maxine, when it comes to you, you will tell us what this does to the sexual health.
Oh my gosh, Monica, wow. Talk about relaxation of the mind and body and the circulation of blood. And when energy goes in the right place, when your body and mind is relaxed, well, we just know that's hammer time, baby.
Thank you. Sipiwe?
I wish we could go back to where we started off from and learning to be a good lover, to really get into it and how to satisfy a partner in what is it that other than the sexual performance, the intercourse, there is much more to it. You have to make love to the woman, for instance, hours before you get into the sexual performance, and that is key. And also the sexual performance, the male child needs to know what is it that makes a woman feel good and complete, because otherwise the whole sexual performance, why do I keep calling it the intercourse, really can leave a hole in your soul.
That is true. Thank you. Christine.
You're muted.
Yeah. Oh.
I really enjoyed this discussion. Are you here? Oh, yes, you are. I just want to say I really enjoyed this discussion and I was glad to be a part of it. And may we all honor that sexual energy within us and express it in the most balanced and healthy way we can.
Thank you. John. It looks like your children want to contribute to.
Yes, they do. They're not all mine though. I take care of children as well. I play with other kids' children, so.
Okay.
That's so nice.
It's a bit of a daycare. It's a little bit of a daycare here today.
Okay. So what's your conclusion?
Pardon me?
What's your conclusion?
The conclusion for me is that there's I have not given up on hope of the spiritual aspect of a sexual relationship. I think that being in the right state of mind, being at peace with yourself, being happy with yourself, having goals, going after things, getting yourself your diet proper, and getting everything in order. I think at the age that I'm at now, there's like a second life that can be lived. So that's what I'm aiming for, and that's what I'm doing. The things that I can do in the different parts of my psyche, my well-being, and a big part of what makes me human is my sexuality, and doing everything I can to enhance those parts of my life.
Okay. Thank you. This was a very interesting topic, and as you can see, there is just so much to learn, but it also starts by accepting yourself, being open to learning, and also go on a mission to discover who you are so that you know exactly what you want. It's not a good sight to be collecting holes in your soul from this pattern, that pattern, that pattern, because we will walk around wounded. You see, people are looking at some of us through the camera and see how rested we are. It's because we've gone through a period of cleansing, and you know what? We are getting grounded. We know what is important, and certainly sexual healing, sexual energy, all these are very important aspects of life. And now we understand that we don't just rush into things because you don't want to collect other people's negative energy.
Yes.
It will affect every aspect of your life. When we mean every aspect, we are talking financial, emotional, physical. It affects the whole lot. And so the cleansing process will also take a long time. We'll see you again next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well.